What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of KIO Macro. Today we have a special guest from our good buddy Isaac. Isaac and his wife are going on their honeymoon. I think they're leaving today. So Isaac was nice enough to introduce us to a guy named Dylan, who I'm going to let him introduce himself, who's been in crypto for a while. We're going to run through the macro, and then we're going to talk about, how he goes about investing into altcoins, meme coins, and things of that nature. So Dylan, thanks for coming on, man. Dylan just told me that we actually met at a party in San Francisco, so this actually isn't our first time chatting. So Dylan, if you want to just start off by, introducing yourself, telling people how you got into crypto, and, we can kind of dive in.
Great. Thanks for having me, man. So I am a kind of an e-commerce guy. That's kind of what I do for a living full time. I'm pretty good at like optimizing websites, direct-to-consumer type brands and everything. Last cycle, I got in just into Bitcoin, and I got really interested in crypto in general during that time. But I was still very raw back then, back in like 2021, 2022. I read the Bitcoin Standard and different books like that. Started listening.
Great.
Yeah. Started listening to Michael Saylor, people like that. I'm not sure how people here feel about Michael Saylor and all the Bitcoin maxis and all them, but I got pretty bought into it at the time. And then the market tanked, right? And a few friends that I know lost a lot of money. I just held on to my Bitcoin. That's all I was really bought into then. So I figured, okay, it's eventually going to go back up. At the time, I wasn't really familiar with a lot of the broader economic cycles that ultimately dictate sort of like how the crypto market works. And so I think, like a lot of people, when the market just totally tanks like that and Bitcoin goes from like 60K to down to like 18K in a couple of months, a lot of people assume, okay, well, crypto's over. Maybe it was a scam after all. It's all going to zero. All those really negative narratives. Of course, the people that are more experienced in the space know that it's all cyclical. And so gladly I held on and, didn't sell. But heading into this cycle, I've been putting a lot more research into sort of what the broader trends are, both on the macroeconomic level and just within this crypto bull run, like where I see things headed. And so, I had some thoughts on sort of both of those things. I see the macro environment being challenging because we're in a situation where the interest rates are very high. They're at historic highs. And yet the economy is doing pretty badly right now. We're not in a full-blown recession or anything like that, but it's on that. We're for sure on a trajectory to be in a recession in the next year if the Fed were to do nothing. That's kind of my take. I don't think the Fed's going to do nothing, though. That's the thing. And so it's kind of like a waiting game where I think everyone knows that they probably shouldn't lower, at least the fiscally responsible thing to do if you were trying to do what was best for the economy in the long term, like 10, 20 years down the line. It's probably not best to lower interest rates because we're going to have really bad inflation if they do lower interest rates, and it's already been pretty bad. But at the same time, there's a lot of political pressure on the Fed to lower interest rates this year. And they've got CPI data, which is basically just a cooked basket of metrics that make it look like inflation's coming down. Maybe it is coming down a little bit, but that data doesn't really account for really obvious things that affect most people, like the cost of groceries, for example. It's basically the data that they're looking at to measure how bad inflation is a bunch of variables that they choose, right? And they can choose certain things that don't get inflated as quickly and say, oh, look, inflation's coming down. So that's kind of what they're doing is, inflation, it looks like it's coming down a little bit, still kind of bad. And they're saying, oh, well, it's looking like it's coming down. And so they're kind of priming themselves for, I think, becoming a little bit more dovish in the next few months. And China's already gone full dovish. They're injecting a lot of liquidity into their economy right now. So I think the US will follow suit heading into the election. So crypto's kind of been pumping in spite of the fact that the macroeconomic trends have not been great for crypto. Usually we get these pumps during a really hefty liquidity cycle, which hasn't really come yet. So that's kind of what I'll start off by saying.
If you look at the central bank balance sheet, we do have a high federal funds rate at around 5%. And I do think that they are going to start lowering rates here as we get, we were calling for what, July, but given that inflation's still pretty sticky, it's kind of too soon. And given the, political backlash that they would face, I don't think they're going to do it before election. I think they're going to do it probably right after, maybe towards right at the end of the year. Who knows? But they can't, like you said, keep rates this high forever, or else we will for sure go into a recession. But we've been talking about how, normally when the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates after a pivot, that's when we see the bottom. That's when we see recessions. That's when we see the market's best discount. And the reason why is because once smart money sees that the Fed pivoted, they're like, okay, well, they're pivoted because something's breaking. But this time, nothing's broken yet. Inflation has been starting to come down. We still have a ways to go. So it could be a situation where they're lowering rates not because something is breaking, but because they're trying to prevent something from breaking. But obviously, only time will tell, and you kind of just got to go with the data. But you can see that they're still offloading junk bonds from their balance sheet. We're still printing money somewhere. The M2 money supply is ticking up a little bit here.
Right.
If we look at gold is at like an all-time high. Pretty much. You have the S&P at an all-time high, which I think has to come down and correct here pretty soon. You have the Dow near all-time high levels. You have the NASDAQ at an all-time high. And then you have Apple consolidating near all-time high levels. And we always stress Apple because it makes up most of the weight in the S&P. And they just announced that after doing the largest stock buyback program in history, they're doubling down and doing an even bigger stock buyback program. And like we covered on our last episode, Warren Buffett actually has started to offload Apple shares. So that should tell you a lot. One of the best investors of our time is selling his Apple shares. And then if we kind of look at Bitcoin, you can see we're consolidating near all-time highs. These red lines are the halving. Obviously, this is the first cycle where we saw Bitcoin reach an all-time high before the halving. That's mostly due to the Bitcoin ETF. We just got an Ethereum ETF, so the market has been pumping as a result of that. We got ETH at almost $4,000. The ETF won't start trading until, what they say, around June, July, or something like that.
I don't think there's an official date on it yet. I think it's wait and see, but it might be sooner than some people might think. It might be in the next month or so.
Yeah, I'll be glad when that happens, because that should add a little bit more euphoria into the markets. You have the total crypto market. What is that, at $2.4 trillion, give or take? And then if we look at Bitcoin dominance, if we go back to prior cycles, we normally get the altcoin blow off top 200 days after the halving. So once this chart drops, that means Bitcoin dominance drops, which means people are cycling their money into alts. We saw this happen 200 days or so after the halving in 2016. We saw it happen after the halving in 2020. And now here we are a few weeks after the halving that we just had in April, and Bitcoin dominance hasn't dropped off just yet. And I feel like the drop off is going to be larger this cycle, just because we're going to have an ETH ETF and just overall adoption. And then before I turn it over to you, Dylan, if we look at the altcoin season index, it shows the blow off altcoin cycle tops, and we can see that we're still semi-bottom near the middle of the range here. So we haven't had that altcoin cycle that we're all excited about, despite the meme coin market cap being larger than a lot of companies on the S&P 500.
That's great.
Yeah, it's $65 billion for meme coins right now. And normally we see meme coins pop off at the end of cycles, but we're seeing it happen here at the beginning. So I think this is a perfect segue to kind of start talking about, altcoins. So it's just I do agree with you. We have to have a foundation to where in the economy, people are comfortable taking risk broadly, right? And if we're having a recession, crypto doesn't operate in a closed vacuum. If stocks take a shit, crypto will take a shit, albeit I do believe it'll recover faster, but it's not just going to, separate right now. So Dylan, how are you looking at this, and how are you going about investing into altcoins, into meme coins? We were chatting the other day and you were telling me about your thesis for investing into, meme coins and base and things like that? Like, how are you feeling given the market?
Yeah, so if the S&P 500, for example, is crashing, like crypto is not going to be skyrocketing up. It's just the way that it works. It's a risk on asset. A lot of people have criticized that, but the fact is that there's more times when people are willing to take risks than when they're bearish, just in general, whether it's the stock market or anything else. And so it's better for crypto in general to be a risk on asset than to be something that's totally recession proof in the long run. It means it's going to go up further and for a longer period of time. In terms of heading into the rest of the year, I think there's an incredible amount of bullish news going on, but I think there is the question of interest rates, and there's going to be a push and pull a little bit between bears and bulls on that question. I think that's the main cause for bearishness right now in the market, is just what's going to happen with interest rates. I see two very likely outcomes happening. We'll see which one plays out, but I think one scenario is we keep chopping along for a little while longer, and then we get some news about interest rates going down, and then the market takes off. Or I could see another scenario might be we start to take off now, Bitcoin reaches a new all-time high, but then we get really bad inflation numbers, and the Fed says actually we might not be able to lower interest rates until next year. And then I could see the market going like halfway up to 100K or something like that, and then having like a big pullback because we're still uncertain about interest rates. But I don't think that means that the bull run would be over. I just think that news is going to cause a lot of movement in the market. So just moving on from that, like in terms of like the altcoins, I guess my position is I think that meme coins are going to have a super cycle this cycle. I think that a lot of people have had their expectations on how this bull run is going to go based on previous cycles. So what you've seen in the previous cycles is Bitcoin goes up, and then you get this kind of natural flow of capital from Bitcoin down into the smaller layer ones like Cardano, Solana, all the other alts. And then meme coins were kind of like the last place where liquidity would go, and that would be like the super degenerate play. You had your Doge, you had your Sheed Blast cycle. But I think this cycle is a little different. People who are getting into crypto now, they remember what happened with Dogecoin last cycle and Sheeb and a few other coins. Like they remember that, and they saw how there were people that became millionaires off of a $5,000 investment or less on these, crazy meme coins, right? And so I think a lot of people who are invested in Bitcoin or just coming to the market totally raw, they're not going to necessarily look at the market and say, okay, I made some money off of Bitcoin. Let me get a little bit more risky and put it into Solana, or let me get a little bit more risky and put it into ETH. Instead of making a 2x this cycle on my Bitcoin, I'll make a 4x on my ETH, or whatever. Not to say that those are bad investments, but I think a lot of people are looking at the market and they're just saying, okay, I'm going to pull it out of Bitcoin and I'm just going to put it into something really risky that could do like a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50x. And I think that also plays into like where people are at in the economy. Like there's a lot of people that view this as a lottery ticket and they want a chance of getting rich, and they see the kind of larger blue cap layer one coins and they think, well, that's a great investment this cycle. I might make 4, 5, 6, 7x on those, but I would rather risk my money and make like a serious amount of money than just take my $10,000 or whatever people are playing around with and turn it into 20,000 or something like that. So I think that's kind of where people's heads are at, and I think we kind of saw this when Bitcoin recently hit its all-time high again, and it went up to like 72, 73K, and then started coming back down. What you really saw there was people just went straight into the degenerate meme coins. They didn't bother with a lot of the layer ones, and that's where you saw this Solana explosion. I think the use case for Solana is kind of proven now, and you had a lot of people investing in these total shit coins, right? A lot of them just went to zero. A lot of people got rug pulled, but we definitely saw an appetite in the market for those types of coins. And where I see this going now is in the last few months since this happened, we've seen some meme coins sort of establish themselves as the market leaders, which if you were investing into the market at the bottom like a year or so ago, you wouldn't have been able to figure out yet that, you know, Pepe was going to be the market leader, or Brett, or some of these other coins that are now emerging are going to be meme coin leaders in this market. And so that's something that we're still a little bit early on. Sure, it would be better if you'd gotten into Pepe a long time ago, but I think a lot of these coins, nobody saw them being the leaders until just a few months ago, and it's still pretty early. And so my contention is that with meme coins, a lot of people are going to be tired of getting rug pulled. You know, a lot of people are kind of tired of, at least I think this will happen, they're tired of throwing their money into a meme coin that did like a 5,000% X in a day. And then they're like, okay, maybe I'll get lucky and I'll put some money into this coin, and it basically goes nowhere, or it goes up a little bit and they don't sell soon enough, and then it goes back down to zero or whatever. I think it's a lot safer, and people are going to realize it's a lot safer to just pick the winning meme coins and ride those up to the top of the market. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now, is like, which meme coins do I think are going to be continuously going up this cycle? And I think those ones have already established themselves.
Okay. So what structure do you place around like investing into meme coins? Because obviously I know you're not eating your whole portfolio into meme coins. Like what's your strategy for investing into meme coins?
Well, I'm mostly just in Bitcoin and meme coins right now. So here's the thing. I don't want to just look at a coin and look at the chart and be like, I think that thing's going up. I need a thesis and a narrative behind it that I'm buying into. So I've bought a few coins based on those where I see that they're going up. I see the narrative behind them. I see the content that the community is posting on Twitter or on Instagram or wherever. And I simply make an educated guess on, do I think this coin is going to keep riding? And so that's kind of where I'm at, is I see the coins in the last few months that are doing well and have continued to pump and consolidate when everything else is dropping. And I think when some of these coins, like Pepe, for example, has reached all-time highs just in the last month or so, when Bitcoin wasn't doing jack shit. In some case, Bitcoin was going down, and some of these meme coins were still pumping. And so I think that's a little bit of a sign and a signal that when Bitcoin does reach its all-time high, or goes even higher, goes to 100K plus, that the vast majority of those coins are going to be the ones that keep riding up into the tens of billions of market cap. So that's where my strategy. I know that's not the most scientific answer, but I don't think this is always the most scientific thing. It's about, how do people feel towards these memes? What's the cultural consciousness going on that makes people buy into these coins? And I think there's an emotional aspect to this whole thing that some of the other coins miss out on. Like, I at first was thinking, okay, I'm gonna put a lot of my money into like these gaming and AI coins, because the gaming coins did really well last cycle. AI is obviously taking the world by storm, so I'm gonna put some money into some AI coins, some gaming coins, the ones that look primed to go on a run here. And I sort of changed my thesis on that, because, and it's not to say that those coins aren't going to go far, or that they're not going to do a 10x or anything like that, because I'm sure a lot of them will. But I've sort of just realized that when it comes to crypto, and this is something I think a lot of people kind of inherently know is true, it's also outside of Bitcoin and some of the top layer one coins that offer like real technology, most of this is speculation. And so a lot of these, and again, I don't mean to disparage this sector of the coin market, because I know there's maybe some people watching that are in gaming and AI coins or something like that. They might take offense to this. But at the end of the day, a lot of people who are in gaming and AI coins, they look at meme coins and they go, well, they don't offer anything, right? They don't do anything at all. It all is just people dumping on each other, right? It's all PvP. And that's totally true. Meme coins don't have any kind of technology that's changing the world. Like Pepe doesn't have it doesn't have any cash flow. It's not a real business, of course. But my contention is that a lot of these other coins, they might have a facade of like oh, there's some fundamental technology behind this AI coin or this gaming coin. But at the end of the day, the reason that those coins pump and are going to do a 20x during this cycle, let's be honest, most of that has nothing to do with the underlying technology. Most of these coins are just pumping because it's that time of year and people are speculating. And if one coin in gaming or AI pumps more than the other, a good chunk of the time, it's going to be not necessarily because the technology is better or because the dev team is better or anything like that. It's going to be because that coin has done an amazing job of establishing a narrative online that people are buying into. And so my contention is that basically the same exact thing that's happening with gaming and AI will be happening with memes. Memes are just not putting up this facade of like, oh, we're changing the world with our technology. They're a little bit more honest. And I think that because they represent a character or a narrative, because it's just a cartoon or whatever that particular meme happens to be, I think they're going to be a lot easier for everyday people to latch on to. And that's what we saw last cycle a little bit as well. So that's kind of my thesis with meme coins.
Okay. I appreciate that. So now, okay, so let's say sounds like you have some kind of framework or filter that you put meme coins through where, okay, it has to have maybe not as hardcore as this, but like, just kind of bear with me here. Like, it has to have like this amount of engagement or this amount of narrative momentum to where I'll invest this much, et cetera, et cetera. How do you go about taking profits on a meme coin? Like, how do you go about scaling out of your positions and like the structure around the investment after you determine like, okay, I'm gonna put some money into this meme coin? Like, how do you go about, exiting your position and things like that?
I think we're going to have to look at where we're at in the cycle. I think certain coins have a point that they're going to reach where there's going to be a lot of selling. So for example, my largest position is in Brett. And
I'm older too, yeah.
Yeah, I love Brett, man. I think with Brett, I think there's going to be a lot of selling pressure when it gets close to $1. I think it's going to go way higher than $1. But there's a couple reasons. One, psychologically, $1 is obviously a big milestone. So I could see a lot of people front running it and selling around 90 to 99 cent range, right? Kind of front running that dollar sell off. And $1 corresponds almost perfectly to a 10 billion market cap. I think it's like $1.1 equals a 10 billion market cap. So not only is it a big number psychologically to reach $1, but it's also 10 billion psychologically is a huge point to reach as a coin. I think only 2 meme coins have ever reached that. I'm pretty sure it's Doge and Sheeb. You could correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think any other meme coins have ever come close to that. Yeah, so I think you take it on a case-by-case basis. I'm going to take profits, every leg up of the market. So if we go from here to 85K Bitcoin or 90K Bitcoin, I'll probably take profits within a month of that happening. But I am going to try to hold most of my coins until the end of the cycle where Bitcoin dominance reaches close to the lows that it was at in the last cycle. And the reason for that is because I think the coins that I'm invested in are meme coins that are going to stick around the whole cycle. Now, if I was investing into a random shitcoin and that shitcoin does a 50x, well, I might have a completely different strategy because I may not be convinced that that coin is going to last the whole cycle, right? There's tons of coins that are going to blast off, but they don't really have that strong of a narrative behind them or a reason. They don't have as strong enough community to actually sustain that level. So they're going to blast off and then they're going to have a ton of sell pressure. And eventually a lot of them are just going to go to zero, right? So if that was a coin that if I find some play somewhere in the market, I get some intel or whatever, I decide I want to invest into a coin, that might be a different strategy. If I'm less convinced that coin is going to be around the entire cycle, I would probably take profits a lot sooner. But with the coins I'm invested in, I'm not going to take profits until a lot later down the road. And I'm not going to take most of the profits until I believe that we're at least 80 to 90% of the way into the peak of the bull run. Now, obviously, no one times the market perfectly. So I'm going to sell everything when I think we're maybe a little bit early. But I'd rather be a little bit early selling than too late. So that's kind of my perspective on that. Do you have a similar, what's your take on, you said you're a Brett holder, so what's your sort of strategy with that?
I'm gonna take profits at $5 and $10 billion market cap. I have around 3% of the portfolio allocated towards meme coins. So, you know, if it goes to zero, I'm not really tripping on it because it's such a small percentage of the portfolio. But I am looking to take profits at like certain market cap levels. So similar to what you're doing, 5 billion, and then probably at around 7.5 to 8 billion. Just doing it a little bit earlier because, like you said, you don't want to wait till it gets to those big even levels because traders look at that and you know it could come back down and you never know. As also, I'm only looking at meme coins on base. Like layer twos is going to be a huge narrative this cycle, I believe. Like this is the first time where we've had layer twos around functioning and with tokens. And, you know, it's going to help, you know, keep gas fees a little lower, et cetera, et cetera. In addition to that, you know, this is Base's first bull market as well. So you have Base, which is a layer two on top of Optimism. So this Optimism's first cycle and Base's first cycle, and this is Coinbase. And we have so much proof that once an exchange launches a chain, it does well. Like we saw that with BSC, the Binance Smart Chain. And this is Coinbase. They're the white knight in crypto. They're the regulatory compliant exchange. And they just launched a chain. And they're probably going to do an airdrop as well because they're saying they want to convert to a DAO. I don't know how the hell they're going to do it. They went public already. Like they're just going to double dip. But I think meme coins have been huge on Solana. I kind of missed that boat. I'm fine with that. But I think things are going to start cycling over to Base. And once they do, you know, I think things are going to be really, really crazy. Is Brett on Coinbase yet?
No, but it will be. They just listed, I think it was.
They will. Brett, it will be listed on Coinbase.
It was Bob that they listed a couple days ago. So they definitely.
Yeah, so I'm mainly looking at Base meme coins. There's another meme coin that I'm invested into called Azure. Also launched on Base. It's another one that'll be launching soon called Bitcoin. I know the founders of both of them. And then, so the Azure meme coin is extremely small right now, like a couple 100,000 in market cap. They're playing off the whole Year of the Dragon. The Dragon is going to be marketed as like the protector of the Base network. And every year it's going to age, kind of like Pokemon. And they have like the top ChatGPT prompter on their team. So they're going to use him to like create a story for this dragon. So yeah, they're doing some cool stuff. But yeah, man, I'm investing a small amount. You know, I have take profit levels that I'm looking at. I'm looking at market cap. I'm not really looking at price. And then yeah, we'll kind of just see what happens, man.
I'm pretty excited just to see how it plays out. It's a pretty interesting cycle, what with the broader economic trends being a question mark, but then just like all of the amazing news we've gotten, the government totally doing a 180 on crypto the last couple of months.
Doing a 180 on crypto.
And then Biden kind of following suit. They approved the ETH ETFs, and then they turn around and block that most recent bill. So it's kind of like, what's your position, Biden? Are you pro crypto or anti crypto? So yeah, I think it's going to be insane. But I do think we're going to be in a meme coin bubble for sure.
Yeah. Invest what you're willing to lose, guys. Have some kind of risk management at play. Make sure you're monitoring it. You know, don't just yeet into it because you think you're going to get a 20x. Have some kind of structure around it.
One more thing I'll say is I do believe that just talking to my friends that are also in crypto, I think a lot of them have some limiting beliefs around the current meme coin leaders, like almost like the coins that are already kind of blue chips, like Pepe. Some people might consider Brett a blue chip already, but a lot of them think, okay, this coin is already at 100 million market cap, or it's at 1 billion, or it's at 5 billion. I can't buy now because, you know, it's already so high. It's not going to do that many multiples, right? Therefore, I'm going to buy something that's super low, like a $5 million market cap. And don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily disagree with that logic in the sense that, yes, if you buy something when it's at 5 million, it has a way better chance of doing 100x multiple, something like that. But one perspective I would just put out there is that let's say you have like $10,000 you can invest without ruining your life. You have $10,000 that you can throw at something risky. You could throw that at a bunch of smaller cap coins that you're not as sure about because you think you're going to get a 50, 100x, and a lot of them might just not do much or go to zero. But a lot of these coins that are already over 100 million market cap, I think a lot of people underestimate how far they can actually go. I think Pepe could potentially hit 100 billion market cap this cycle.
100 billion?
I think so. Doge did 80. Which meme is bigger in terms of how much people use it, Pepe or Doge?
I don't know.
I think most people would agree that Doge as a meme peaked in 2021, 2022 at the latest. Like, people don't use the Doge meme even a quarter as much. And I don't mean in terms of crypto. I just mean in general, but also in crypto. Pepe is the most used meme in human history. And the market caps are going to go higher this cycle, I think.
When you say used, do you mean like people like posting about it on Twitter? Like, what do you mean by used exactly?
Well, Pepe is the symbol for when the market is bullish. Like, people use Pepe when the market goes up because he's green. So, that's, first of all, people use that in crypto just based off of that. But Pepe is used in general, not just in crypto, but like worldwide. It's the most used meme in human history. And it's just having its day as a crypto meme. And so I mean, look at it the last few months, it's been completely pummeling Doge and Sheep. And I don't think it's crazy to say that. I mean, listen, it may not pass Doge, it may not, but I think it's for sure passing Sheep this cycle. I'm not predicting 100 billion. I think that might be like a high prediction, but I think 50 billion is super realistic. I mean, that's still 30 billion short of.
That's an 8x from here, pretty much, I think.
Yeah, and it could be more. And so my only point is, like, if you're looking for a 10x or a 20x, I think a lot of these larger cap meme coins still promise that. I don't think you have to like risk the whole farm on a 5 million market cap coin. It's my only point with that. Sure, you're not going to get 1,000x on Pepe. I totally agree. But maybe you don't need 1,000x. Maybe you're cool with a 10x on something. And if you invest 10K into something that's a 10x, well, now you've got $100,000. Yeah. And now maybe we're halfway up this cycle. Let's say you put $10,000 into Brett, and Brett goes to a 10 billion market cap. I actually think it could go a lot higher than that. I think it could go to 20 easily. It's the #1 meme on Base, and it's Pepe's best friend. Did you know that? Brett
in the message. I didn't know that until you told me that.
The artist that made Pepe, he made Brett at the same time. And the artist says he doesn't understand why Brett doesn't get as much love as Pepe. They're both the main characters. So Brett, I think, is going to see the light of day in the public. And I just think it has everything going for it. It's on Base chain. One other thing about Base, too, is that because it doesn't have its own native token, a lot of people are just going to go straight into Brett because it's the biggest coin on Base. So that's another advantage it has going for it. So you were asking about my strategy. My strategy is, like, let's say you have $10,000. I'm not going to put it on a shitter that's worth at a 5 million market cap, hoping it's going to go to $1 billion, because it's probably not. I'm going to put X amount of money, let's say for argument's sake, it's $10,000, onto a coin that I think is winning, or 2 or 3 coins that I think is confident going to go to a 10x, at least, if not 20, 30x. I'm going to wait until I have X amount of money in my portfolio when the market cap has gone way up, when we're higher up in the bull market. Let's say, for argument's sake, you put $10,000 into Brett, it does a 10x. Now you're at 100K. Now, guess what? Maybe you see a play that's a little bit riskier further into the market. There's going to be a lot of plays, a lot of opportunities that come in the next 6 months. Maybe you take $10,000 and now you bet on a more of a riskier play from a position of strength, because you're already up 100K on your initial bet. So that's kind of my take on the situation. And again, not financial advice, But if you're a person where you don't have like crazy amounts of capital to play with, and like, why not put it on something that's risky but has a strong thesis that you're confident you can get a 10x in, and then when we're at the peak of the market, then make a riskier play. And if you want to put 5-10K in, see if you can become a millionaire. Do that from a position of strength, where if you lose it, it's okay because you're already up $100,000 or whatever you're up by, $50,000, whatever you managed to make on the way up. That's kind of my perspective, at least.
Nah, I like that. The meme coins I'm holding, Brett, I'm holding a little base pro shops. It's so funny, these names, man. People just sit there and like, oh, that could be a meme. And then, like I said, Azure. Another thing about Azure, the same developers that was behind Floki is behind Azure. And
how do I spell Azure?
Azure. The website is azurebase.xyz, I believe. Yeah, they just remarketed to like this cute little dragon. The market cap's like 300K or something like that. So if that goes to $1 billion, that's crazy. Yeah, I made a few videos on it on my YouTube channel. They're trying to do some cool things, man. So, but like I said, I'm invested what I'm willing to lose. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But I still got most of my bag is in like ETH and RWA projects, because the RWA market cap is only like 5-6 billion. Pendle Finance has 5 billion locked in its platform alone. So I think RWAs are severely undervalued. So yeah, ETH, RWAs, a little bit of Radix, and some meme coins and yield farming. And we'll see what happens with that.
Man, it's going to be exciting.
It is, man.
Where do you think Bitcoin goes in this market at the top?
I think by the end of the year, we'll definitely be at a 6-figure Bitcoin. I think before the end of next year, we'll see at least 150. I'm gonna really start selling once we get to that level. Like, I have a take profit. Everything that I'm buying, with the exceptions of some meme coins, everything that I buy, I have like take profit levels already set in, so I know where I'm gonna be selling. But in terms of my moon bag, because you always want to keep a little moon bag, my take profit strategy is more so focused on the oscillator or benchmark in Bitcoin. So as Bitcoin starts to hit big even levels, 150K, 200K, I don't care where shit's at, I'm gonna be dialing. I'm gonna be selling everything off, because I think 200K is probably the top.
That's kind of my sense of it as well. I think 120, 130 at the absolute lowest. I think 200K in like a dream scenario. Let me ask you this. A lot of people, they rightfully notice that with each cycle, the amount that Bitcoin multiplies is going to go down because it's logarithmic. So a lot of people predict Bitcoin will do a 3x of the current all-time high, kind of based on that. A lot of people, though, they also predict a $1 million Bitcoin by 2030. I don't see how that happens if one of these cycles doesn't completely blow out of the water people's expectations.
So are you asking me, do I see a $1 million Bitcoin by 2030?
Yeah, do you agree with that, or do you think that's a little?
That's Kathy Wood's prediction, right?
I think but like also quite a few people out there are saying $1 million Bitcoin either by 2030 or sometime near there. But if you just look at the logarithmic projection, one of these cycles would have to completely overperform expectations. I'm not claiming that it will happen or not. Another variable that's just not taken into account here is that I do feel like we're hitting this critical mass of users. And with all of the ETFs, we're going to have a lot of boomer money coming in. So I do wonder if that capital could possibly exceed expectations here.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. And I'll tell you why. For everything that you said, I think regulation will be a lot more favorable. And then two other things that I've made videos on that people don't really talk about. So credit card companies is the first thing. So it's just like right now we have these credit cards that offers rewards and points that no one gives a shit about.
Right.
Eventually, I think most of these rewards are going to be like Bitcoin, Ethereum rewards. So the credit card companies are going to have to buy up a fuck ton of crypto, a fuck ton of Bitcoin to be able to offer these rewards. So that's going to like cause a huge supply shock. And then in addition to that, Bitcoin miners. So Bitcoin miners historically have been like some of the top sellers because it's expensive to run any kind of mine, whether it's a gold mine or a Bitcoin mine, you don't mine the commodity or the asset and hold it and wait for the price to go up and sell it. You mine it and you're selling. You try to hold some, but you're normally selling to cover their cost of running your mine. Now, Bitcoin miners, historically, it's been hard for them to raise fiat capital. So they've been having to fund their mine through their Bitcoin gains, right? But now that Bitcoin is becoming more and more like legitimate, like we have a Bitcoin ETF now, one of which is BlackRock. It's going to be easier for Bitcoin miners to raise capital via fiat. So they'll be able to fund the operation of running their mine with their fiat dollars, and they won't have to sell their Bitcoin to run their mine. Shit, if they sell their Bitcoin, their investors will sell their stock. That's where we're headed.
Right.
That's another thing. So I could see it happening. But I also wouldn't be surprised if it didn't, because that's such a huge run up. But I also wouldn't be surprised if it did. But if I had to guess, gun to my head, I say by 2030, we at least see a $700,000 Bitcoin, at least.
That sounds fair. Sounds fair to me.
Yeah. So I hope we see a $1 million Bitcoin. That'd be lit.
Yeah, although, some of these really wild predictions, I don't know if you want to live in a world, like I've heard some crazy people say, oh, it's going to be 10 billion in the next 10 years, or not 10 billion, 10 million in the next 10 years. And I'm like, well, if Bitcoin actually goes that high, that probably means there's some kind of
fucked.
Yeah, like some kind of doomsday scenario is playing out, and like the dollar is just worthless, which could happen at some point. But I think we're a little ways from that still.
Yeah. I don't think that it's gonna happen.
No, not for a while at least.
Yeah, and another thing you gotta take into account, like once institutions start buying Bitcoin, they're gonna do what Micro Saylor's doing, and they're not gonna sell it. They'll just borrow against it.
That's another thing I've heard some people bring up is like wherever the peak is, whether it's 150K, 200, 250K, do we see it drop back under 100K after that point? I'm not sure if we do, because I don't know if I see the institutional sell-off happening the same way.
No, they get in with 10, 20, 30, 40, 50-year time frames.
Right. So it does kind of change the dynamic of a bear market as well.
Yeah, once institutions are in, which, that's what I'm most excited about for this cycle. Like mainstream institutional adoption can only happen for the first time once. They're going to create a floor whereby Bitcoin won't go below, because their risk parameters won't allow them to sell. What that floor will be, not sure. But if we go to 200K, I think we'll probably drop back down to like 120. But if we go to like 130, 140, definitely coming under 100K, I think.
Yeah, because that would be kind of under a lot of people's expectations to begin with if it only does 120, 130K. So at that point, I would expect it to come back to like probably where it's at now, like the current all-time highs, or the previous all-time highs, like it usually does.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a lot of factors at play, man, from so many different areas, from regulation to the economy to, it's a lot. It's a lot, but nonetheless, I still think it's going to be a good year for altcoins and meme coins. So
for sure. So if you were a person who didn't have any money in crypto yet, and they were interested, and let's say they had a decently large risk appetite, like they could handle some risk, they're pretty young, what would you tell them to buy? Would you tell them that they're early still? Would you tell them that they're late?
Oh yeah, definitely early, 100%. What would I tell them to buy? I always tell people to invest into what you understand. If you're just looking to get a hot tip and you don't care, which that's how I lost most of my money, but let's just play the hypothetical. If that was the case, real world assets, man, this is the sector / narrative that's most attractive to institutions. I like layer 2s and real world assets. Real world assets is bridging the gap between TradFi and DeFi, and layer 2s are helping onboard more users. I think most of the dApps are going to be built on layer 2s versus L1s. We're kind of already seeing that. So if, like, let's say someone has 10K to invest, I would say you want to keep at least 10% in cash at all times. Probably put another 10% into ETH. I don't personally own any Bitcoin. I sold my Bitcoin. So my ETH position kind of acts as my Bitcoin position. Right. So I'd say 10% in cash, maybe another 20% in ETH and or Bitcoin. So where we're at 30% there. And then because you said they're young, right? If this was older, it'd be a little different. So, and then I would put the rest of it into real world assets, Pendle Finance being the largest, maplefinance, Clearpool, Goldfinch. I like Relio Network, and then layer 2 such as Arbitrum and Optimism is what I would say. And then I don't want to have them too diversified because you have to keep track of that. And then maybe carve off like 5% and invest into the meme coins that we were talking about in the video.
Okay, so not 100% on Brett.
Not quite. But yeah, I think that portfolio would do really, really, really well in the next year. And if they're really trying to get advanced, I would say use around 15 to 20% to learn how to yield farm, so that you're able to accumulate assets while you're waiting on things to moon. Or if you're in a bear market, you're always just accumulating.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, man, I appreciate you for coming on. This is a valuable call. Let me know if you want to jump back on and talk about anything else. We'd love to have you on. To everyone out in the audience, if you got value, like, comment, subscribe. Dylan, where can people find your socials? Do you want to be found or anything like that?
Oh, man, I'm kind of a small fry on social media these days. A while back I deleted all my accounts because I was like, I want to, live off the land. I don't want to be on social media anymore.
You ain't missing nothing.
No, well, it's too late. I already came back, but honestly, not yet. Let me put some thought into it. But next time we're on, maybe I'll have a profile or a handle for you.
Fair enough. Well, hey, next time Dylan's on, we'll give you guys a way to follow up with him. But until then, we thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one. Dylan, did you want to leave the audience with anything else?
No, just that it's still very early. My mom's not even talking about crypto yet, so that's how you know we're early.
That is true. My aunties and uncles aren't calling me saying, "Hey, what's up with this Bitcoin?"
When they start calling you, that's probably shouldn't be investing at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool, man. I appreciate you for coming on and can't wait to have you back.
All right, thanks, man. Yeah, have a good one.
You too.
Have me.